Hello, everyone. My name is Allison Dennis. I serve as Executive Director for the Sitka Center for Art and Ecology, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to tonight's resident talk. Sitka is located at Cascade Head on the north central Oregon coast and resides on the unceded traditional lands of the indigenous people now represented by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. Tonight's talk will be featuring the third cohort of the collaborative residents taking part in the Black Artists Gathering project that's curated by Intisar Abioto and hosted by the Sitka Center. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Sitka Center Black Artist Project Fellow, Intisar Abioto. Intisar is an artist working across photography, dance, and writing, moving from the visionary and embodied root of Black girl Southern cross-temporal, cross-modal storytelling ways. Her works refer to the living breath of people of African descent against the expanse of their storied, geographic, and imaginative landscapes. Working in long-form projects that encompass the visual, folkloric, documentary, and performing arts. She produced the People Could Fly project, the Black Portlanders project, and was a recent guest curator for the Portland Art Museum exhibition, Black Artists of Oregon. Intisar, it is such a joy to have you back at Sitka and to have your leadership in helping to shape the future of residency experiences and access to residencies at Sitka and ever. Sitka community, please join me in welcoming Intisar Abioto home to Sitka.
Thank you so much, Allison, for the introduction, and thanks for having me. Thanks for having us. It's always an amazing, wonderful, grounding time. This is the third time we've been able to do this and just bring these artists here to just do their thing and commune with the space and the land and with each other. I think the first one we did where there were a lot of textile artists, and actually some of the work that each little cohort has, it's a story that's unfolding. So even some of the work that Adrian Cruz was doing here, the first cohort was ultimately exhibited in the Black Arts of Oregon. So all these times and spaces truly matter. Thank you so much. And also to all the funders. I know Hallie Ford Foundation was a part of funding this cohort. So yeah, I won't talk that long. It's been so exciting having everybody here. I'll just get going into the introductions. The first artist that we have is Zoe Gamel Brown, is a queer Boviander Guyanese American integrative artist, educator, and storyteller based in Chinook, Elahi. Their work explores healing ecologies through ceramic sculptures, culinary catharsis, creative nonfiction, experimental video, and photo poetry projections. She is a doctoral student in the University of Oregon's Indigenous Race and Ethnic Studies inaugural cohort, where she focuses on care for intergenerational trauma through creative expression and cultivating ecological relationships. In 2020, she founded Fernland Studios, an experimental ecology art studio prioritizing rest, rejuvenation, and reciprocity. Its mission is to prioritize providing Black, Indigenous, and all people of color the opportunities to sustain their relationship with the land through art, education, and spiritual wellness.
Hey y'all, thank you so much. And I was like, oh, I wonder who's gonna be first. And it's me. So I'll just get the shaky nerve laughter out. I've actually spent so much of this morning reviewing the former artist talks and just feeling so awash with gratitude for not only this beautiful time that Intizar has cultivated, but like Intizar as a person, the beautiful people in this cohort, the Sitka Center, and the staff who has just supported us in doing whatever we kind of need to do with our work and time. But also thinking about how immeasurable these moments are for folks like us who need to do our work, or who don't need to do our work, who just need the time and space to just be a person. So thank you so much, Intizar, because you have just, I think I said this on the phone to you when you called me about this. I was like, I feel so seen by you, and that really speaks true. And I feel that like almost every time we talk. So thank you. And with this, I will share my screen and we can kind of get this party started. I give a lot of talks for the multiple modes of work that I do, but I after watching this morning's the talks from previous years, I felt so inspired for the way that people entered speaking about their work and speaking about their practice in this time specifically. So it'll be a little experimental in the way that I share, but I just wanted to really honor what this time has invited towards my thinking at the end of this time. So to begin, I was sitting with how do I want this to start? You know, like how can I maybe convey a bit of why I'm here and a bit of why I'm doing this work to begin with? And I think initially I had some slides with like bullet points about who I am as a person. But I thought that I wanted to kind of go back a little bit further and get a little more hands-on, I think, with why I'm doing any of the stuff that I do. So, as it was shared, my name is Zoe Gamal Brown. I work across different mediums and modes and institutions. And I'd like to think that the way I entered my artist practice really started in 2015. 2015, I woke up in February very hungover and just like kind of sitting, looking at my life and seeing kind of what was around me and wanting something different. I was living with my mom at the time, and we were both in the space of like, what will it take for us to feel well? You know, in this time, I made a commitment to myself that, I was going to put down the drinking for a little bit, like get some time and space to really center myself, but to really spend the next year being like dedicated to my art practice. And at the time, my practice was super new, kind of evolving, not really sure what that was. But I was like, if I'm going to take this next year to really understand what was the work I wanted to do? What were the creative communities who were existing in Houston at the time where I lived? And how can I feel comfortable in sharing this work and supporting this work in the multiple outlets that I had access to? And so in this time, I started DJing for K-True Rice University Radio, where I had a weekly show kind of talking about different genres of art that was happening in Houston, but also sharing some music that was happening there as well. I started interning for Writers in the Schools in Houston. They are a organization who provides creative writing workshops to underserved schools in the greater Houston area. There's also Writers in the Schools based in Literary Arts in Portland, and just felt really inspired by the way that being within this role allowed me to witness the power of someone hearing your voice, like the power of someone honoring your voice and honoring your story in the way that as artists, though, our work allows us to do that for ourselves, but it also allows us to do it for our peers, as Intizar so beautifully does throughout the work that she creates. And I was really inspired by the way in which that moment that someone's sharing a story with you and you can see them kind of getting like ramped up and like excited, that moment I was like, this is it, right? Like this is the point of life in a way, to not only be able to get excited about what you're doing, but to have someone else like witness your excitement and to witness what goes on behind the scenes of the work that gets produced over time. And so in this time of living in Houston, though I was born in New Jersey, I was primarily raised in Houston. I was also a witness to several just ecological manifestations through hurricanes and flooding and like tumultuous thunderstorms, and spending some time kind of thinking through that, what are the elements of which allows my work to be alive? And feeling really inspired by the environment that I was surrounded by these beautiful bur oaks that were in my neighborhood, and wanting to find paths that, I could still create my art, but that I could also be very intentional in the way in which environmental relationships were a part of the process that allows my art to come to life. So in this time, I moved from Houston, spent some time in Austin, and then found my way working at the University of Oregon as a staff member in communications. And what initially began as me just working as a communication specialist turned into me being a managing editor, where I was again in this opportunity of helping people steward their stories, primarily undergraduate and graduate writers, and sharing the research they were doing with the public, but also supporting faculty and sharing their projects as well. I started this position in March 2020, which we all are very aware of what was also happening in March 2020. And by June 2020, I was like, okay, y'all, what does life look like beyond this, right? As someone who's immunocompromised, at the time, my mother had recently had 2 strokes, and I was primarily in my house in Eugene, Zooming with my friends across the world, and like really like looking at each other in the face and being like, what do we need to be well in a very real way? Like, what is not only the financial resources that are necessary, but the care resources, like the practices of love that we want to give and we want to receive so that we can actually actualize wellness in a world like this, right? And so during this time, I was really fortunate to work with some beautiful folks that you'll see projected in this GIF, and my amazing board members who are without a doubt like co-conspirators in this project. But we were really thinking about how an organization that became Fernland Studios could provide Black, Indigenous, and all people of color opportunities to sustain their relationships with the land through art, education, and spiritual wellness. Like really wanting to pay attention to the multifaceted, multi-layered ways that we want to connect with each other across our work, that we also wanted to be deeply embodied in this work too. So within Fernland, we provide artist residencies, ecological arts funding, and writing retreats. And as of this summer, we'll have supported over 40 BIPOC artists in doing this work. And then another deep intention I would say that has always been a part of Fernland existing is how can this programming be provided at no cost and with additional funds to support your practice, right? If a part of our intentions is to reduce barriers for people of color to create their work, we will not create even more barriers for you to be a part of this project. Our intention on this time was to invite folks who are committing, to invite philanthropic organizations, donors, grantees, grantors who are committed to giving back to the community, who are committed to these areas of repair, to actually propelling this work and to supporting artists and meeting those needs as well and to connecting them with each other. And so in the last, 4 years now that Fernland's been existing, in 2021, I consistently had people asking me, all right, you have this art organization, what's your art? And I was like, I have no idea. I was like writing poems here and there and writing some creative nonfiction and like kind of painting, but like not very taking it seriously. And in, I think, winter of 2021, I was very fortunate to be in conversation with the folks in the City of Eugene's Cultural Services Department. Shout out to Shannon Santiago and Kate Ali, who let me know that they had this project they created out of COVID where there were empty window fronts in the City of Eugene, and they wanted to turn these into exhibition spaces for artists in the area. And so through this invitation, I was thinking about what are the ways in which I've practiced love with people, but the ways that love has also been practiced with me, and how sometimes words or intentions don't always meet the mark, but what were the containers of this care work that were available for me throughout my life? And immediately I thought about food. My family's from Guyana and we were not very wealthy growing up. And so I didn't get the opportunity to visit them frequently. But something that I felt always very ingrained in and supported by was sharing recipes and to also share moments in the kitchen. And so my first exhibition was called Vexing Me, which is from my grandmother, who would, with the biggest smile on her face, tell me that I was vexing her in the kitchen and that I needed to get out. And I really wanted to honor like what opportunities of joy are available in moments of these deep despair. I wanted to share a bit of Guyanese food with people, even though I couldn't actually give them food. And so you can see some like photos from Oregon extending to Houston and Guyana. I have some ceramic vessels that were meant to mimic people being at the party. I have a baby blanket that my grandmother made me and some furniture. And I also have lavender and echinacea, which are really big healing plants within Guyanese culture that has always been my way of kind of grounding myself in moments of distress. And in the center, you can see this video that my mom and I were working on after many, many years of saying that we were going to make a Guyanese American cookbook. We're like, it's going to have jerk chicken with barbecue sauce. And like, it's going to have all of these ways that we've come together to make Guyanese food in our home. And I won't share too much because I don't want to go over too much time, but I just wanted to share like an invitation to why this was occurring. And to kind of go on to the format, as I mentioned, my mom had 2 strokes in 2020, and the following year she had a heart attack. And so my father passed when I was younger, and my relationship with my mom intensified in this moment. And we were like, okay, this is the time, like we have to make this cookbook. So because she wasn't able to travel to Oregon to visit me, I Zoomed her in, and this video kind of came from that intention. I'm gonna put you back into the shelf where you were before. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Yay, finally got it.
Yay. Okay, hi Mom.
Hi. Do you want us to remember where it came from? What?
You get to like, hi,
Yeah.
my name is your name, and then you
Okay.
can say, Yeah, just whatever. When someone's like, tell me your story. It's like,
Okay.
who are you?
Okay. My name is Dawn. As a matter of fact, I have several names. My name is Dawn Cleopatra Felicity Grace Gamel.
I'll stop there. I think my mom is one of the like most charismatic people I've ever met. And I've watched that video so many times, but it always makes me laugh at that line. So, beyond just the intention of having these Guyanese American recipes that we could hold on to, in this time of talking to my mom, we were really inspired by the way that food is medicine, right? Like food is actually medicine. Like the gut microbes from your grandparents are still in your gut. And the ways in which we are able to heal many of our ailments, some of our ailments are through food. And so this video and this installation has really transformed into this larger project that I'm working on called Crayley's Curry, where I am filming my mom and my mom and I making food. We're talking about our family's history in Guyana. We can see a photo of my great grandmother, Louisa Correa, here, and that's my mother actually holding my uncle Dexter. And I'm also making these ceramic vessels as containers of these stories where I'm trying to like actually project videos out of the containers. And so going into this time at Sitka, I was like, all right, we're going to make videos, we're going to write a chapbook, and we're going to make ceramic vessels all within 2 weeks. That you can see this fantastic wheel that I've been working on at Sitka that I'm like very much in love with. And naturally, I didn't do all those things. And I'm so glad that I didn't do all those things because what became more apparent to me is that I really needed this time to just rest, to just be in a state of peace. I woke up last week and I sat in bed and I was just like, where's this amazing place where I am, where I can see the ocean from my window and just feeling such a gratitude that whatever forces allowed me to be here today, the people who have supported me in being here today existed, and that I really wanted to honor that time. And I wanted to honor that in these waves of care work and of love and intention, they often take time and also requires us to have time for ourselves to be well enough to even be a part of the work, right? And so what I did instead, I made a plate for the first time. I was very excited about that. As you can tell, we went on an ecology walk yesterday that was super rad and learned about the differences of bark and spruce and Douglas fir. I stared at the ocean a lot and saw some rainbows here and there. And I was just so reminded of all of the pieces that come together in making art, not only the idea, the ideation, and the process, but the people and the practice and the places as well. So in closing on my time talking and in closing on this sharing with you, this is a photo from my uncle's farm in Guyana. I've made this intention in my heart that I will go back home this year. I haven't been back to Guyana since 2015. And I wanted to just spend some time with the land, spend some time with my family, and spend some time in that deep intention that is required for us to be well. So I will stop there with just a big thank you. If you want to talk to me more about any of my work, there's my information.
So thank you so much, Zoe. So many feelings. Yes, yes. The next person we have is Sekai Avani, a native of Portland, Oregon, and graduated from the Juilliard School, the BFA in acting. Sekai stars in the feature film The Long Game, directed by Jace Anderson, which premiered at the Santa Barbara Film Festival in February. You may have seen her in the series Paper Girls from Amazon / Plan B. Her past work includes A Song of Songs at the Bushwick Star, directed by Michael Ross, and produced by Jeremy O. Harris. Cakewalk, a Garage Magazine and Gucci production, directed by Miranda Heyman. And most recent performance and installation work, Prayer Over Collars, premiered at the Portland Art Museum this fall. Avani's recent work, a short film and installation, Winter Citrus, premiered at Ars Nova in New York City. Another performance and installation work in collaboration with jazz musician Emmanuel Wilkins recently premiered at the Roulette Center in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you so much. Say hi.
Hi, I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. I graduated high school from Jefferson High School in Northeast Portland, where I was born and raised. And I like to shout out really everything that kind of started my artistic life and my artistic career, because it really did start in Portland. I started acting at the Interstate Prior House Cultural Center when I was about 8 years old. I went to Da Vinci Arts Middle School, and I was a dancer and an actor before I went to Jefferson High School and continued on. And I think, just as like Zoe was starting this out, a shout out, I went to school in New York about 8 years ago, and I've been there ever since. But it's been really amazing to just be back here with so many incredible people. Intisar, of course. Also, Sharita was one of my teachers and one of my first art teachers and mentors when I was in high school. So it's really great to be back here with Sharita. And Adrian Cruz, who was with us for a second, has been one of my, aunts and family friends, and just like great mentors my whole life. So it's been really great to be back in the community that raised me and really taught me so much and inspired so much of my work. So yeah, I went to Juilliard when I was 18 years old. I think that I was actually practicing a very different kind of performance art, but at the time I really understood it to be theater. And so when I went to Juilliard, it was kind of a little bit of a shocking experience for a lot of reasons. One, I just had never spent time in an institution like that. I think that, that's kind of the first time in your life that you really do get access to those institutions. But I started at Juilliard in 2016, a few months before the election. And I think that a lot of my time there was a moment where institutions that hold a certain level of prestige were being asked to look at themselves. And so it was a difficult time, I think, just to be an artist, to come from Portland, to come from, I think, as like revolutionary, as leftist, as artistically expressive of a community that I grew up in, to go to an institution that was really interested in producing a very specific type of artist for a very specific type of industry. And then I graduated from Juilliard with my BFA in May of 2020. So I think, like many people, that was a big moment. That was a shift for me, because I had gotten a degree in something that was virtually impossible to practice at the time. And that's when I started really starting to re-engage with my art career and what that looked like, and really starting to think of myself not just as a performer, but also as a filmmaker and what that looked like. I think it was really clear to me that I was uninterested in going back to another institution, because I had had such a really difficult time and traumatic time at Juilliard, that I really wanted to dive into filmmaking from a completely different angle outside of the kind of status. I started just kind of making things and making videos and making films on my iPhone, on camcorders, on just little things where I wanted to really play with the frame. And my practice really started in 2021 when I did a piece with the jazz musician Emmanuel Wilkins, who is in New York. And we did a piece called Blues Blood Black Future, where there was an opera performing that, a jazz opera going on. And in the back of the stage, I had built this installation and then was cooking on stage for 2 hours with it. And I started to kind of play with food, because that was really what I started to enjoy during COVID. I started to really play with food, and food as performance, and cooking as performance. And that kind of continued for me as this deeper interest into the kind of divine feminine, or the character of the divine feminine. So that's what I kept being really interested in. And since there have developed a practice that is looking at kind of the work and the business of being an actor as its own piece of performance and as its own piece of feminine performance. My practice at its core, I would say, is interested in the Black American tradition of self-mythologizing. And I don't consider myself, or I stake no claim to magical abilities, but I believe the work attempts a childlike recreation of magical practices rooted in this idea of self-mythologizing through image making. And that's how I think of myself as a filmmaker and as a performer. The work serves both as meditation for the performer as well as the viewer, a practice in stillness, quiet, and from it the extremely loud. Through found image and manufactured food installation and written word, the inquiry is profoundly directed by the spiritual and supernatural, the work materially motivated by an introspection of the divine feminine. And so that's kind of been my practice for the last few years, starting to work on really figuring out how the two worlds now kind of come back together and what that looks like. And my time here has been spent in a lot of stillness. I mean, I think there's something about this place and the land that, 2 weeks is a lot kind of in business, or 2 weeks feels like a lot when you're looking at like, can I not do my regular life for 2 weeks? And then you get here and you realize how short of an amount of time that is. So for me, it's been really great to be actually just thinking a lot about my practice and thinking a lot about projects that are coming up instead of being really motivated on pushing anything out since I've been here. That's a little bit about my practice and my story and what the time here has been like.
Thank you so much, Sekai. It's such an excitement for you to be here. Yeah, and it's interesting the different connections between everyone, the food and the cooking, the stories, and yeah, it truly means a lot. And even as I, going back to, I remember first meeting you when you were at Jefferson. So it's so excited to have you here. Thank you. The next person we have is Sharita Town, is a transdisciplinary artist born and raised on the west coast of the U.S. along I-5 from Salem to Tacoma and down to Sacramento. She creates interdisciplinary community art projects that engage local and global Black geographies, histories, and possibilities. Current projects include a Black Art Ecology of Portland, an initiative launched in 2019 to unify groups towards the creation, reclamation, and redefinition of spaces for Black art and community in Portland, Oregon. Town holds a BA from UC Berkeley, where she studied languages, interdisciplinary studies, and art practice, and an MFA from Portland State University with a focus in socially engaged art. Alongside her work as an artist, she taught at the Pacific Northwest College of Art for 7 years and frequently acts as a facilitator of self-determined Black art infrastructure in Portland. Her work has been supported by the Oregon Community Foundation, Creative Capital, and the Ford Family Foundation, among others. Thank you, Sharita.
Thanks, everybody. I just want to thank everybody who is here and on the call, and the Sitka staff and Intezar for being so supportive during a time of a whole lot of allergies. You can probably see in my face, you're like, did she go to bed? I did go to bed. I just have allergies, and everyone's really been supportive through it. I'll just get right into it. I wanted to start with my own kind of land acknowledgement. Being in Silet's homeland, I think of all my Silet's family. My lifeways aren't Silet's. My mom is Paiute and Cree, and my father on his side is Choctaw. But I just wanted to acknowledge all my Black and Silet's family, my cousin Fat Boy, may God keep him, and his son Otrell. And then my cousin Tristan here in the top with his son. I took this in his backyard when his dad, my Uncle Eddie, got out of jail after many, many years. It was a really tender time for him to meet his grandchildren. And then my cousin Amy over here with my cousin Nicole. Nicole, the one with her eyes closed, is actually Fat Boy's mom. And I ran into Amy the other day at the Goodwill here in Lincoln City, and she was like, they have good shoes. So right after this presentation, I actually get to run into my car and drive an hour south to go eat with her. And so I just wanted to acknowledge my family. You can see me in the bottom here. This is a photo when I was 14 in Bend, Oregon. So just thinking of my family across this entire region. Okay, I want to share something I edited as soon as I got here. This is actually, a lot of the clips in this are of Sitka, and it will premiere today at the Biennial in Portland at the Oregon Contemporary. This is Bridget Hickey's video. It combines footage from both Sitka, her home, a residency at Playa that I curated 2 summers in a row. And so I was her assistant editor and kind of editing together all these really wonderful fragments that kind of bring together textile and water. This is Adrienne Cruz's porch, who was here earlier and in prior residencies that everyone has mentioned as well. And so there's just so many really wonderful threads and pieces kind of pulling through all of us. I got to spend the first days of this residency kind of really sitting through all these fragments and lifeways with Bridget, supporting her through her premiere at the Biennial. I'm also thinking of family and being out here, family and grief, and carrying the grief of not only my own family, or the way that Bridget's work that you just saw also is processing a lot of grief, but a lot of the work I do in the community does that as well. So this is just a clip of one of the largest public art pieces I've done, where I filled the cracks in the road with gold where Keaton Otis was killed by Portland police 12 years ago. Keaton was experiencing kind of distress, starting to show symptoms of schizophrenia and mental health. He used to walk in Forest Park and really enjoy all the ferns and things with his mom, who's a social worker. But he was killed, and every month on this street in Northeast Portland, Northeast 6th and Halsey, there's a vigil for him. His father started them from a place of grief. And so every month for 12 years, uninterrupted vigils have happened. It's one of the longest, or maybe the longest standing monthly vigil in the country. And so I use this metaphor of kintsugi. Kintsugi takes something that is broken, and instead of throwing it away, it offers repair. And so it honors the broken parts as beautiful and makes them stronger. And I think that a city like Portland and cities throughout the world that acknowledge the way that they constantly undermine Black life are made stronger by that acknowledgement. And I think we as communities, especially creative communities, are made stronger when we acknowledge and hold the broken parts of people as well, instead of doing what Portland police did, which was gun them down. I also will just show a few clips here. So this is an example of trying to translate street work into a gallery space. I think with a lot of Black collective work, I'm trying to think of how to share it. And so when I tried to share this piece of Keaton in a gallery, I made kind of a fake kintsugi and put a monitor of ferns from Forest Park under it, and some neon and a risograph print. I have a risograph press in Portland called Noon Studios. Risograph is ecological printing. It's rice bran oil ink. So ink that's made through when rice is industrialized for food, the waste, rather than turning into just waste, we turn it into ink. So that is what this poster is. I also translate mural, like this is a mural in Black housing, Black affordable housing in Portland that I translated to a gallery space, kind of screen printed wood and laser cut acrylic and on-site mural. I think when I think of a gallery space, I try to situate all these really intense kind of community projects all in one space together, and they all kind of feed off of each other. And one of the things I'm most proud of about a show is the number of couches. I really like mothers to be able to sit down and take a rest. So in this show in particular, there was like 6 couches. This is a risograph of TT Gully honoring Black trans lives. I also helped Black midwife collectives make a zine called Black Birth Matters. Jefferson High that Sakai mentioned earlier, this is the Jefferson statue that was pulled down in all of the uprisings, and in getting Portland Public Schools to lend me the sculpture for the show, I put a do-rag on it because that's what Jeff High students did. I remember coming to work at the time that I was working with Sakai when she was a student, and a student did that. And so rather than a homage to Jefferson, the president, this is a homage to young people, the young artists out there, especially at places like Jeff High. This is one of the abiotas in a film called Albina Queens that I got to be executive producer on with Sitka Center and some other folks. It honors a lot of Black womanhood and place making, place staking, place keeping in Northeast Portland. And this is 2 murals I commissioned. One is of Thelma Johnson Street here. That's a mural I did called Thelma and the Waters in Between. And then this is a mural by Natalie Ball. So this is a quilt called Bus Busli Awadish, which means Black Lives Matters in her language. She's a Klamath Modoc Black artist here in the state. I curated these like big sister, little sister, like I look up to Natalie. And so that was how I wanted to have these walls here on Williams Avenue, which is the most gentrified street of the most gentrified city of the century. And then lastly, here's some prints. This print took me a very long time to do because it's just so steeped in research and citation of Black life along the Mississippi alluvial plains on the right side. So starting from the Delta up to St. Louis, that's the city center of St. Louis under this little boy's foot as he's kind of alienated and looking back at this family on move-in day at Pruitt-Igoe, which has been called one of the greatest catastrophes in urban planning of the 20th century, kind of that collide of private and public disinvestment in the Midwest of post-war family public housing that was just total catastrophe. And then the right side of the print is I-5, so Seattle, Portland, and LA. It's kind of my own family, just to kind of bookend this thing. It's my own meditation on Black geography as someone whose family came from the alluvial plains of the Mississippi and over to I-5. So that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Sharita. Yeah, there was a sub theme with this residency was really also thinking about Black artists who are thinking about space and spatiality and Black arts infrastructure. And so I always appreciate and celebrate Sharita among the people working in that vein here. The next person is Jabrielle Henning Rayford. And this is my cousin. This is the granddaughter of my oldest aunt. And I'm excited to have her here. And, you know, she's done some of the documentation for Black artists of Oregon. Jabrielle Henning Rayford focuses on compelling storytelling through narrative, music, and documentary projects, working with companies like Hooray Radio and Madewell. Rayford believes deeply in the visual arts, music, and language as pathways to help us better understand ourselves and the world around us. With a style made up of colors, cultural history, music, poetry, and family traditions, she is passionate about using these tools to move her community to its highest ground. Jabrielle.
Hey, everybody. I just want to say thank you first to Intisar for inviting me to be here. This is my first time in artist residence of this kind. Like, I did something with photography last year for a couple of days, but it was nothing like this. So just to be able to be in this space and like people, some of my cohorts that I mentioned before, the ability to just breathe and be, it's meant the world to me. I have been on such a journey as come to terms with that, but I'm starting to like call myself that, because what you name yourself is very important and how you see yourself in the world. And I have been in arts practice for most of my life. I like to think that, you know, in a lot of ways, we're all artists and we all have this ability to make something. I think when we come onto this planet, that's one of our, you know, given gifts is the ability to create, whether that's drawn on the walls or drawn on pieces of paper or doing things with Play-Doh or whatever it is that we would do as children. And so that's what we all are. So I think of myself as an artist through photography and writing. That's one picture that I could get to, but it's one of my favorite photos that I took recently. These are both pictures of me, actually. So yes, this is me, Jabrielle. Like I said, I write and I do directing, and I also am a photographer. Photography and writing is what I have been doing. The directing is something that has been a passion of mine for a long time. So these two pictures here, the one on the left is actually taken inside of my residence. And so thank you, because I love this space so much. Then the one on the right, I took on the plane, and I doodled on it on the plane on my way here. It has been a long journey for me of recognizing myself, believing in myself, understanding my gifts and the power of sharing those gifts, expressing those. So being here has given me the ability to like recalibrate myself and my spirit. And the photos that I'm going to show, some of them express some of the duality that I've been experiencing within, where, you know, I think we all go through these ebbs and flows of life where you're seeking to understand more about yourself and who you are. And so, yeah, my journey started years ago, like I said, as a writer, doing poetry. I would do short films, like write short films and plays with my friends. And then around 15, I decided that I wanted to work in television. I wanted to be a showrunner. I would watch old shows from like the 70s through the 90s, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I went to Howard to study that. And it was also one of my first introductions into like understanding the differences between artistry and when you're in entertainment industry. I didn't know that I would learn that even further in my life, but that was one of the first introductions. I studied TV production, which was very technical. And then I also studied playwriting, which required you to go deeper, to study character, to understand the ways in which conflict informs character and story. And I always felt like I was able to deepen my relationship with myself through my work in my playwriting classes versus what I was learning in my regular TV production classes. But that was like my foundation in terms of understanding how I wanted to do this thing. And then it took me back home. I'm originally from LA. It took me back home after I graduated so that I could work in entertainment. And I did that for about 6 years. I graduated college in 2015, and then I started trying to figure out my way, and it eventually landed me work with Issa Rae, who's an actress and a writer and a producer. And I see that part of my life as this graduate school, and it gave me an opportunity to like navigate this industry that I had always been seeking. This is a statement that I wrote that is kind of in my bio. And when you land on my website, this is the first page you'll see. Images, music, and language have the power to alter our understanding of the world within and around us. May we use them to uncover our truest selves. This is what I believe is like my mission statement, so to speak, that I think is always evolving and growing, but this is the foundation of how I've always created and seen creation, because I was always interested. I mentioned watching like old shows growing up, and I was always interested in how things came to be. I have this belief that like the past, continues to collide into itself, and it makes the present, and then that collides into itself and it makes the future, and nothing exists without what has already existed. And when I would look back, I would see these powerful like ways that artists before me would use their messages to make a change, even if that was in a small community setting or on a global scale. And I think that we have a responsibility as artists, image makers, whatever it is, to recognize the meanings in things. And this is sort of what I live by. And I take it very seriously. Things exist on all kind of levels, but I take image making seriously. And I think the same about music and language, the ability to change us. So today I want to talk a little bit about duality and what I have been experiencing. Part of why I was invited here is because I have been in a cocoon state of my life. And I feel that, we all go through that. We all do go through our phases of cocooning into butterflies, but then that's where I am right now. So these two images, I took both of these here. The one on the left is at the Riverboat House, and it's of these binoculars. It's in black and white because it speaks to a part of what I have been experiencing, like I said, about this duality within myself of the low and the high, of life and death. And so I feel like these like binoculars and this idea of perception, how you see the world, matter, that is growing and is so alive. Yeah, it just feels like me on the inside right now. And the possibilities, again, how you perceive the world makes all the difference in how you move in the world. And then also when being here and being in all this life, it reminds me that like no matter what it is that we're going through in our lives, the possibilities are still here. It never leaves you, even though sometimes you may feel that. You may feel alone, you may feel isolated. The reality is that the creation and living is all around. Expanding that further with this picture as well, the black and white versus color and reflection, and being alone versus being in community. And we need both of those things. Those things are equally important. It's just the way that I'm sort of seeing myself right now. These are older photos that I took. Same thing. I think the photo on the left to me feels like, when you're in these narrow spaces and when you feel trapped and not sure about the path, and yet like there's this strength and this power inside of you, again, that is always present. And the photo on the right is of a friend of mine. She was bringing life into this world. So again, this juxtaposition between life and death, and the discomfort of that, and also the beauty of when you're bringing new things into the world, and how sometimes you go through difficult things to bring forth that beauty. And then these two photos are also a reflection of myself and my creative, I guess, process right now, feeling trapped, but knowing that there's so much ahead and knowing what is possible. Again, I'm very like interested in this idea of two things that always exist at once. And that sometimes we can feel like certain moments of our life will never shift. and yet they always do and always will. And I give thanks for that part of life. But yeah, that's like the first part. Being here at Sitka has just given me it's just been such a blessing. It's amazing that like I'm waking up and I feel, I've said this, been weighing me down, have been lifted or is lifting off of me. And so this is why I have this photo on the left. It's actually a photo of my little cousin, and he's behind this gate. And then this photo on the right that says, let's keep going. Let's remove the barriers from ourselves, this perception of what we can and cannot be, and let's move forward into the future. And I feel like that's where I am in my life. I wanted to also, in that vein of moving forward, go into some more photos that I've taken. This is a picture of my grandmother. She's one of the most important people in my life. I love here how her hands are stretched out. And again, this journey, well, you have this hand behind a gate, and now forward into the future, and now out for surrender. And that's sort of the journey and the prayer that I have for myself as I continue my practice. And then I'm going to move forward to these engagement photos that I took. I have a few from this collection that I really enjoy. But for me, and right now, this speaks to the need to be loved and cared for and held. When you've spent that time in isolation, you spent that time feeling alone, you need people there with you to help protect you and surround you. Now, when I took these photos, that wasn't a part of why we did it. We did it because it was a celebration. But here, that's what speaks to me. I will say that when I do my photos, I try my best to take things that feel more traditional and put my own spin on them. I never want things to feel generic or basic. And so I love to try to figure out new ways to do things. If you want, I'll show you guys my website at the end, or you'll see what it is and you can look and see more from this collection, some more from that photo shoot. From this engagement shoot. I'm always curious about, like, again, like just this juxtaposition and like the differences when you shoot at very low angles, and the kind of like, expression you get and what it means to see ourselves big and wide. But I'm also super interested in like us as little creatures on the earth and the juxtaposition between those two things. But this is one of my favorite images. And in relationship to where I've been in my life, it really speaks to, again, the possibilities. This blue, beautiful sky and the sun feel in my life, and this yellow, like this is how I want to feel, and this is where I'm headed. Same here. To me, it's just about allowing yourself to be seen, allowing yourself to be cared for, allowing yourself to be held. I think as artists as well, I don't know, everyone here may not have this, but I know in my personal world, it's been a journey for me to learn how to be seen and to be protected and cared for, and to feel safe in that. So when I see these photos, that's what I see. I see safety, I see protection, I see love, I see like, yeah. I'll go to the end of the slide so that you all can see my Instagram and also my website if you want to see more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jariel. This is so beautiful. So I'm so thankful. The next person is Midnight Seed Abioto, and this is my mom. She's been here at every cohort, but I wanted her to be actual resident this time and have her own time. She's an amazing artist. She's the reason I'm an artist, alongside my siblings. She's my muse. Midnight Seed is a muse, a consummate lover, an oracle, a mystic, and a mother of 5 goddesses. For over 30 years, she practiced human rights law throughout the byways and highways of Mississippi. She combines writing, theater, law, and spirit in her work as a culinary, evolutionary storyteller, and brings her Southern roots to creating vegan sun foods from the South to the Northwest. Midnight Seed.
Greetings. My name is Midnight Seed. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Intisar, for allowing me to come for all of the 3 different cohorts, and they have their own specific personalities, but everyone is so great, and I'm just really blessed to be here. So I'll start off. I'm a writer, but I'm also a dramatist, and so I'm going to share with you my biography. I grew up as a student of the Deep South. My particular vision is colored by long miles of cotton fields, southern sleepy towns that meander into the dark midnight. The deep lines of black hands rolling fish in cornmeal drop gently into hot sizzling grease and the simmering pots of greens boiling in the quiet day of a Saturday. I am familiar with the wooden benches in churches and long, slow Sundays. I inherited figs bursting from their skins and peaches drip with their nectar, the gold that is inherited by every Southern child as soon as they are able to digest other than mother's milk. I have been loved inside a cocoon, a black oasis, Greenville, Mississippi, my town, my neighborhood, and my church. After graduating from high school, I was cast into the arms of an all Black women's college in Atlanta, Georgia. The first question asked by the professor, "What is the essence of a woman?" hung like wet towels on my intellectual landscape. Later, I would find myself in the arms of Old Miss. I was a poet wrapped in legalese, an oracle hung on paper thin, a muse listening through the ear of Fannie Lou Hamer. You know, you can lose yourself in the labyrinth of life regardless of what age you are. You can get lost immediately after birth as you ascend from the birth canal, or later as you turn into a senior version of yourself. You can lose yourself in a myriad of ways throughout this thing we call time. Certainly, if you embrace the wet blanket of an ideology that you are constrained by a geographical place, constrained by a people based upon race, sex, age, ethnicity, or held captive by a gender definition, you may find yourself lost in a labyrinth. I am so different in my head and so easily diverted into tributaries of outlandish essences that I surprise myself at the location at which I arrive sometimes. Where am I and how did I get here is my reoccurring thought. Yet I think it is only by embracing the unconventional, imaginative self of the I am that I truly come close to myself. So after having wandered in this wilderness called conventional law and finding no resting place for my beingness except in thematic, analytical, spiritual revelations, I stood at the door of myself. So my next one, I'm new to this. So this is what I'm going to stop that and go to some of the work that I've been doing recently. I just curated a exhibit in which we were dealing with 4 cash crops harvested during our enslavement in this country, which included cotton, tobacco, hemp, and sugarcane. Rice should have also been in that one. But at any rate, so I did an installation which also included a collage. And so this is a couch. So this is the work: couch cotton, sit upon we, daily we incline, ancestors times 3, rolling up on thee. And my work is mostly about symbolism, it's about oracle and divination, and it is about the evolution of our lives, why we are here, why did these things happen in history, and the magic of it. Like, where are we going? On what ship are we on today? And what is our destination? And so when you look at the history behind cotton and you look at it not only from the perspective of our cultivation of this magnificent plant. Of course, now during that time we suffered greatly harvesting and planting this plant, and were brought to this country to harvest that particular crop. So I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to know cotton, not from the perspective, not only from the perspective of cultivation of this crop, but I wanted to know, what is it that this crop really signifies? What's the message of this crop? Some of the roots, both the roots and the leaves of the cotton plant, have been studied as treatment for diabetes. It is also used, the seeds, for reproductive care. And so there's a lot of symbolism with cotton. I also did collage while I was doing this particular installation. How I did the collage was I used these pillows and I put cotton around the pillows, and then I collaged on top of the cotton. And so this particular piece is called Pillows Sing. Pillows brined in cotton vinaigrette, babies in wombs multiplied, egg hells, shell stars, flying Milky Ways. And what that is, I know we talk about the reason that we were brought here, but on a different level, what is the end result of this sojourn here? And well, I was dealing with eggs being fertilization, and also the picture of these skulls also is a throwback to the enslaved ships where our people were pushed into the belly of these ships and what that was. And then, of course, the fetus there also dealing with our birth and rebirth, images relative to the flag and all of that sort of merging into both an idea dealing with past, present, and future. So I'm dealing with simultaneous time and how things are actually occurring and reoccurring right now as we live. Okay, so then this is another piece, the two cotton pillows, buckle my shoe, and coming forth in circles, spiraling out of time, electromagnetic light changing into garden snakes, ship bellies, crisscrossing paths, and coming forth. And like the snake is the symbol of transformation. And so here, I allow my art, I'm always looking for what is trying to come through the essence of my being. So, and I'm sure with every artist, you start with one idea and you end up someplace else. It's such a high spiritual modality, a way of being, of beingness of the person. That's that one. And then this is Pillow Talk. Speak to me, O Cotton One, ancestors of Lucy's curl, driving cross ocean stories, harvested we on plates of timeless clocks. We be returning Kemet stars. We be returning Ifa stars. And so this is more to the return. Like we are our ancestors, and we are in the process of returning, rebuilding, reconfiguring while we are yet on this evolutionary spin. I did this piece for the same exhibition here. My uncle was a musician, and he would always sing this song about give me my flowers while I yet live, so that I can see the beauty they bring. And so I found all of these pictures. Someone had taken a scrap is where you can get really great art supplies and different things. And so these pictures were at scrap. And so I just covered the table. And then the pictures are my daughter, Intisai, took these pictures, but one of them is of my great grandfather. And so this is in homage to our ancestors. And then this last one here is the Forest Queen. I actually did a lot of the plant material that I used to make the Forest Queen I got from here at Sitka. The Forest Queen comes. She comes for those, the Gungun of the Atlantic Ocean. She hears their whispers and so it is made up of annual honesty, which would be the very light color things you see there on her jacket and on her skirt. That means transparency, honesty, and currency. And then she also has walnuts on her, which are black walnuts that I took. There are also ferns that I took that made up a part of her outfit as well as the gungun. So the Forest Queen, my intention is to bring the Forest Queen both to stage and to screen. I was taking this opportunity while I'm here to really understand about the forest. And so being here is like so enchanting, so beautiful. And I, like everyone else, had all of these things I was going to do. And of course, I won't get to all of them, but I think what I get most from being here is the magic of our lives. Like our vision is skewed. The beauty of nature is incomprehensible. And sometimes, no, I think we're stuck on stupid. I think that truly understanding that we live and breathe in this most magnificent, on this most magnificent planet. And what we have to do to honor it, like the consciousness of every plant, the consciousness of the mountains and the oceans and the rivers, getting to that, like getting out of our head like human beings are the cream de la cream of anything. And finding ourselves and positioning ourselves within the consciousness of the earth, I think we'll do better in the world. We'll treat each other better. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much, Midnight. There was one artist who couldn't be here today. She had to travel, but I wanted to just read her bio because for the documentation of it all. Her name is Olani Ewunet, is an Ethiopian American interdisciplinary artist and designer based in New York. Her practice spans sound, video, drawing, spatial design, and community-driven environmental interventions. Her work has been presented at various institutions, including the National Sawdust, BBC Radio 4, DACA 4, Summit, Beaux-Arts, Brussels, Savory, Contemporary, Gallery, Wedding, and Bauhaus. Committed to the stewardship of communal land and the convergence of speculative design thinking and indigenous knowledge, Olani activates her background in urban ecology, planning, and design to be of service to communities across the planet. Over the years, she has collaborated with Francis Kere in rural Burkina Faso, with Esperanza Spalding in Portland, Oregon, and most recently alongside public housing communities in NYC. She holds a master's degree in design with honors from Harvard University and a BA from Occidental College. I just wanted to be sure that I included her here. They have a performance at the Lincoln Center on Saturday, so they had to leave. I also wanted them to be here as a designer, as somebody thinking about land and about space. But yes, this has been such an amazing residency. It's not quite done yet. I just thank all of the residents. I thank everybody here at Sitka for just always the welcome and the space to dream and think and do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Intisar, for your leadership and curating such a powerful residency experience and talk tonight. And oh my goodness, thank you for sharing your muse with us. Thank you, Midnight and Jabriel, Zoe, Seiki, and Sharita for presenting tonight. Thank you, Olani, and thanks, Intisar, for bringing Olani's work to Sitka and into the experience tonight. Thank you, Sitka community, for tuning in. Bye, everybody.